Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm Brett, that dental guy. I appreciate you choosing to spend a few more minutes with me as I get really, really nerdy about abutments and why we do not need them any longer. I posted a video a few weeks back and kind of coined the term abutment-free restorative concepts, A.R.C for short. And in that video, I explained what we're doing as an organization for dentistry, similar to what the industry experienced a couple decades ago with the popularization of all-on-4, all-on-X, all-on-6 procedure. It is just a new concept of how to bring people and give people teeth. Those that have terminal dentition or had some trauma to their mouth that they need their entire arch of teeth replaced or a single tooth or a couple bridges. And so all we are doing as a technology organization is pushing dentistry forward to say, hey, we do not need abutments any longer. There's nothing incorrect or wrong with abutment-driven dentistry, but we just don't need abutments. I use the analogy of using a horse for transportation to get you from point A to point B. There's nothing wrong with using a horse to do that. You will get to your destination eventually. Now, will you get there quickly compared to using a vehicle? No. Will you have some saddle bruises as you get to your destination? Yes. Do you need to stop and pause to let your horse feed and drink? All these things. A car is much more efficient. But again, a horse will get you from point A to point B. There's nothing wrong with using a horse for transportation. Same thing with dentistry. Same thing with implant dentistry. There's nothing wrong with using abutments. It will work. You'll give a patient their life back and give them the teeth that they paid you for. But you don't need to use these products any longer. And there's also clinically side effects to using stock, standard, prefabricated prosthetic parts to give your patient the teeth that they paid you for. And I'll talk about these here briefly. So on my next slide here, we'll talk about the problems that abutments provide us. Oh, I'm not on the camera here, am I? Apologies, 1 second. They solve problems, but they also create some problems. So let's first talk about the problems that they solve. They correct for angulation of our implant. Nothing wrong with that. We need, as we lay implants down to avoid the sinus or the mandibular nerve, we need something to correct that angulation, to put the teeth on top of. They also handle some of the mechanical load as the patient's chewing on this new set of teeth. There's also a engaging or a non-engaging component to a lot of these abutments, and that's what the internal hex of an abutment in an implant has been. Okay, and then they also serve a purpose to have something for us to retain a restoration to. Again, these are the problems that abutments solve. Do we need them for those purposes? Now, again, complications when it comes to tie bases, especially for single teeth replacement bridge cases. We are still using some sort of, screw-mentable, cementable types of processes to retain the prosthetic to the abutment. And we know what is typically the number one contributor to peri-implantitis is cement, excess cement. So why are we going to continue to use a material that we know can potentially jeopardize the longevity of the life of our implant cases? Also, they are limited in terms of how much angulation correction that they can handle before you have to purchase a different type of abutment, right? And so we have these stock standard parts. Once they're fabricated and made, that's all that they can serve. A 32-degree MUA cannot be a 45-degree MUA. Just like a 45-degree MUA cannot be a 17-degree MUA. And so we're really restricted with the parts that we have. Well, what if I've laid this implant down at 37 degrees? Well, now I'm in between 32 and 45. I'm going to select the best option. Well, what if the gingival height of the patient is 3.623 millimeters of thickness, but I have to choose between a 2.5 gingival height and a 3.5 gingival height, or go to a 4.5? I use the term cookie cutter dentistry, where we're using parts and pieces that have already been pre-made ahead of the surgery instead of making the components necessary for that specific procedure the day of surgery. And we can do that now when we get rid of this abutment interface. And again, I'm a big analogy user. Apologies in advance for all the cheesy analogies. Who has had a fresh donut made right then and there? Much better than the donut that's been sitting in the in the window for the past couple hours. It's still a good donut. You'll still get, your sugar craving fulfilled, but it's nothing compared to that fresh donut. Same concept, bad analogy, but my point is let's start making the prosthetics custom for every patient the day of surgery instead of using stock standard componentry. We want the best for our patients. We probably want the best, in the industry in our own mouths. So if we can provide highly custom restorations to patients, why would we not? That's another component of custom abutments for single teeth, especially. It's expensive as heck to buy a custom abutment to use for your patients. We all know it's the best way to restore a single tooth or a couple bridge cases. We know it's the best, but we don't use it because it's expensive. And we're also running businesses, and we have to make a decision. Hey, something that works or something that also works that's highly custom and the best for the patient, but it's a lot more expensive. We're going to choose the thing that works. Everybody wants a Lamborghini. Everybody wants a Ferrari. Not everybody can afford it. So that way, I give them the nice, consistent Toyota Corolla. Okay. Again, but now what we're saying with abutment-free restorative concepts, we can give patients the Ferrari they want while paying the Toyota price because we have eliminated this component that makes things problematic to give them a custom restoration because it's pre-made versus making it the day of. And that's the joys of CAD design and software and AI. We can now provide patients with custom restorations faster than we can traditional methods. That's what's my biggest thing coming to TRI was the fact that we can provide custom restorations faster than pre-made, fabricated, abutment-driven restorations. Most of my clientele these days that are incorporating a 3D printer like a Midas that can print a crown in 7 minutes and are also using our AI crown design service that does the design in 3 minutes once you kind of select the screw type and whatnot. All of that popping out of the custom design, 3 minutes. Your total surgery time from extraction to screwing down a custom restoration, we are now sub 30 minutes. What does that mean for you in your practice? That means you're able to increase your throughput, which I talked about in my last video, because the amount of time that it takes you now to do a case is drastically reduced. You can do more per day. And again, I know most of you are just surgeons, and then you send your cases to your associate to restore. How much easier are you making their lives and making them much more productive? To give them a design that's done in 3 minutes, say, hey, doc, put the screwdriver in the screw through the crown and torque it in. And it's going to drop in like a glove because, again, it is custom, specific to what's in the patient's mouth and where you place the implant. We are oversimplifying dentistry at this point, and I hope you can tell the passion in my voice and why I get a little frustrated, to be quite honest with you, when I'm in conversations with some clinicians that refuse to acknowledge the fact that TRI is doing things other brands cannot do. I had the comment the other day that TRI is solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved. And I was like, Doc, what do you mean? Please explain to me why it's a bad thing to innovate. Nothing in the history of anything has ever been necessary to be made. But as human beings, we're constantly innovating and pushing things forward to make them better. I don't need this phone that I'm using to record all this. I can use another camera, but that camera is, 5 years outdated. I'm going to use the newer one. We could say that's solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved. I can use this camera, but I'm choosing the more innovative and modern camera option because I realized after my last video, ooh, that camera quality is not as good as I remembered it being 4 or 5 years ago when I first bought it. Anywho, side note, we are innovators. We are a technology company that's trying to get dentistry as a whole to understand that we are behind the times. Dentistry has not progressed as rapidly as we would like to think it has. We are the last industry to really be touched by robotics and innovated to that level of robotically driven surgeries. We're still very, very much labor intensive when it comes to doing the surgery itself. There's been a lot of innovation recently, kudos to Sprint Ray and a lot of these other 3D printing companies. I would say that has exponentially enhanced our space. There's been a lot of innovations with intraoral scanning and milling capabilities and design and exocad and all these kinds of technologies, but the implant and the abutment has been a symbiotic relationship since the infancy of implant dentistry. We've always used abutments with our implants. That has not changed. Why has not that? Again, the big brands cannot do this because it's corporate suicide for them to do so, eliminating a component that generates over 30% of their year over year revenue. It's not an idea that's going to pass in the boardroom. And so, therefore, they're forced to continue the cycle of making abutments better. We'll pre anodize them for you, Doc. We'll make them for any angulation, any indication possibly known to mankind. And your catalog will be about that thick. That's also why you pay more for these premium brands because they have a component for every indication known. So they have to cover those costs of fabricating all of that stuff ahead of time, and you're the end up being the ones to pay for it. And it's a fantastic branding, initiative that they've been able to achieve, convince people that they're the best, when in fact they again, sure, they have the biggest catalog for any type of restorative component you need. But all that stuff is such wasteful efforts. You don't need all of those things if you have the right technology in your office with an abutment free interface. Again, obviously, you can tell I'm a little bit passionate. This is the other part that I wanted to talk about. Look at the difference between rosin screw, desk screw, powerball screw, badger screw. I know they're all a little bit different. I'm not entirely sure which one this is versus our 2.8 millimeter wide, 9 millimeter in length retentive screw. Massive. I mean, honestly, if you had the choice, which one are you choosing to retain your teeth to your face? I think the choice is pretty clear. And again, this bolt screw combined with our implant interface, combined with the CAD design software, solves all of the problems that abutments solve for. If I were to oversimplify everything, maybe our engineering team would disagree with me, but this bolt screw is truly what allows us to do what we're doing. CAD design, we've been able to, do custom restorations to that extent. This bolt screw, being able to retain a restoration while also handling mechanical load, while also, this is our straight one. We have an angulated screw channel screw for your angulated cases, especially for your distally tilted implants. I have an actual case here that I can show. There's an angulated screw channel screw. I can't, I don't have access to my screwdriver right now. You see the access holes are all corrected. Up to 30 degrees of angulation correction on this. Obviously, the path, would have come out posteriorly here in the back, but we can correct the access hole to come out the occlusal surface. So up to 30 degrees of angulation correction for the screw channel. This implant itself can handle up to 50 degrees of divergence alone. But again, restoratively, aesthetically, it's not the best solution if you're in the aesthetic zone to use our 2.8 millimeter straight screw. use our angulated screw channel screw. So again, wanted to make a brief video on abutment-free restorative concepts. Remember, the big brands can't do this. That's why, and they won't do this because it would be silly for them to do so. I hope they do. I genuinely hope and am excited for implant dentistry to adopt in mass this concept of ARC, but I am skeptical that they will because, again, these big corporations have too much tied into their abutment business. So, anyways, all that to say, please comment, like, share, get in contact with me, talk to me about dentistry, provide me with your skepticism and your feedback. Honestly, I love to have conversations and friendly debates about prosthetics and implant dentistry as a whole and workflows especially. So please get in touch with me. Follow me on Instagram. I look forward to interacting with you guys. I hope to see some of you in Vegas here shortly for the Progressive Dental meeting. We will see you shortly. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.